So Haley and Rebecca, this conversation came to be because we were chatting, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and I felt like that was such a powerful conversation about what it's like for working with and helping and being related to people that are aging, that I felt like we had to come together and have a conversation that we could share with the broader world. And really the purpose of this is a little bit of commiseration and a little bit of empathy and just having a conversation to let people know that it's okay to that when things are hard, and when we're dealing with aging, etc. So we all have day jobs where we serve older adults in various capacities, and we can absolutely talk about that. But I'm curious, if you guys would both like to share your journey with aging in a personal capacity, and then we'll interweave, if you will, some of the our learnings about aging, and because we deal with older adults, for our day jobs. Does that sound like a good plan?
That sounds great. That
So,
sounds great.
Rebecca, would you like to start? And there are a couple of elements that I am very curious about that you said over the last week or so that I might throw in there and have you talk about that. But I'd like to talk a little bit about your journey with aging, and how you're doing with that.
Um, Personally or professionally?
Now, personally,
I,
so
you
we're
know what? I think
keeping
they
our
weave.
professional side of things at the door for just a minute.
Yeah. For me right now, as a woman in my 60s, they definitely blend, aging and my career right now. They also blend personally, not just for me, but as you know, Kabir, I am sort of the point of contact for my mom. She's 87 years old. And I realized today, and maybe that's why I've had a headache for 3 days, that it's a lot of work for a caretaker. I'm super grateful that I am not the uh, person who's taking care of her every minute of the day, but I'm preparing for that, and I think that it's really great now that I'm working with you, Kabir, and meeting people like Haylee who are in the aging world because it's a mystery world. I think so many of us think we're never going to get old. Um, and we do everything we can to prevent it, at least on the outside, and maybe a little exercise on the. But for the most part, I think we pretend like it's not going to happen, and then it starts happening to somebody who we love. And in my case, it's my mom. And gosh, so working with you, with Hello Every Day, with people like Haylee, and out there in the world that's helping people age in place, solo agers like my mom, who knows where I'll be. I'm married now, but my husband's older than I am. It's very eye opening. It's exciting. I don't feel scared anymore. I felt very scared of what would happen to me, to my mom, to my husband. And so as I learn, I actually feel like this really cool joy. Like, okay, maybe I have a third left of my life or a quarter. Even if I only have a tenth of my life left, I know that I can make the most of it, um, largely because I'm getting tools from people in this aging community.
I think we should just end the podcast right here. I think you said it all, Rebecca. But
That's it. Good night.
that's it, right? Um, there's just so much to talk about there. But before we go on, Haley, we'll share a little bit about your journey.
Well, Rebecca, I can say there is such thing as caregiver burnout, and I think that it is something that is not recognized as much as it needs to be. There are support groups in place. You ever need a connection, there are people, even if you don't do it full time, I can put you in touch with people that at least there are groups that you can talk to and people that are going through the same thing, even if it's low level care, even if it's just for a parent, even if it's just for your partner, there are support groups in place. And so that's something to think about when it comes to, because there's such a guilt that comes with it, right? You're like, well, this is, I'm their daughter. I should be, this something I should be doing. And, it's a real thing. And it wouldn't surprise me that's where your headaches are stemming from.
I am Haley Organicon. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for MorningStar Senior Living in Hillsborough. We are an independent living only community. We have brought in some low-level care options for our residents, which is great. I've been in senior living about 7 years now, and I absolutely love it. I've done everything from activities directing to dining room coordinating to event planning with companies. I found myself in front of the right people at the right time, and I worked myself into the sales and marketing department and have been working up since then. My roots are deep in hospitality. I sort of lead with that lens in place on how I think it's so important to treat every interaction, especially in senior living, as if you're hosting the perfect dinner party. I think connections need to be, genuine. I think that's what a lot of people at this age are desiring is to be seen and to be remembered and to feel significant. It's funny, Rebecca, you mentioned, if I just have a little bit of my life left or even a quarter of my life left. I think some people are in the mindset that aging begins around 80, and 80 aging is something that we've been doing our whole lives. And I think that needs to be brought out more. I think in conversations is, so many elderly people feel like it's a weakness to say, I'm aging, but frankly, that's what we've been doing since we were born. So I think that, everything leads us up to that age, our health, our habits, our mindset, who we choose as a partner, how we exercise, all those things take place. And so I think, especially now and especially in the position I'm in with people that come in, I always gently remind them that this is not something that you need to significantly plan for a future. You're just planning your next journey. You're just planning your next option, just like you went to high school or just like you decided to have children. Now you're planning on, living in a 55 over community with, other people. It's a choice you're making. It's not something to be thought of as, the end. It's definitely not the end. So
Haley,
That's
talk a
exactly.
little bit about what your work, how that influences your personal journey of helping the older adults in your life.
Well, I definitely gained a tremendous amount of patience. It's funny because sometimes I think you easily lose patience with family more casually than you do with strangers, right? You have so much more empathy and things for the people that, you come in contact with every day. I find myself spending more time in conversations and getting to know them. And then sometimes I have to sit back and I think, oh my goodness, am I doing this with my own mother? Am I doing this with my own father-in-law? Am I taking the time to listen to the stories and make them feel heard? It's teaching me a lot about, I think I had mentioned this to you, Kabir, how, we're an independent living community, yes. And a lot of people are coming in because they've saved their whole lives. They have retirement plans and they're ready to enjoy the next chapter of their lives. They're ready to pop the champagne and enjoy retirement. And there are people that are moving in that have never lived alone. And there are people that were widowed either very suddenly or recently. And I think what that is teaching me is to definitely you cannot be the same with every person. You have to be incredibly connected and genuine to the stories and be more of a listener. I think people in sales think that sales has to be a tremendous amount of talking,
Mhm.
and it's teaching me to listen more because the more I allow them to speak, like one of my favorite things to say when I sit down is I do not talk about Morningstar. I say, what brought you here?
Mhm.
What made you make this decision? What inspired this visit today? Just to I can get some idea. And you know what? I don't always get the answer up front. I get,
Mhm.
oh, I'm just looking, planning for my future, seeing, I love that, planning for my future, seeing what it looks like to live this way. And usually by the end of the tour and the visit, the answers are quite different.
Mhm.
They are, well, my husband passed, and well, my kids think it's time. And then all of a sudden, the truth starts to come out once they feel more safe. I think that's just how it is, you spend more time with somebody that really makes you feel connected, and there's a safety there that I think is super important. And so how that transitions into my life, I don't quite know yet. Maybe my husband and my father-in-law and my mom could tell you, but I definitely try to bring those lessons into, you
Yeah.
know, into my home and to everybody. I mean, and not just with my elderly family members, but with the people that I live with. And
right?
yeah.
You both talked a little bit about the fact that aging, people don't always identify that they have, say, have gotten older. And Rebecca, you said this about your mom when we were talking earlier today that, she kind of finds herself like she doesn't think she's gotten older, but here we are, right? She's in her 80s, and it's fascinating to me, Haley, as well, when you're talking about for a lot of folks who are relatively healthy and they're in good cognitive function. It feels very natural. It just feels very organic. They're the same person that they were when they were 40 or 50 or whatever, right? Like it doesn't really matter. Um, Talk a little bit about how you think that what are some of those attributes where people are more successful at looking at it as the next chapter versus people that are going in kicking and screaming? It feels to me like attitude can make a big difference, but I'm curious how you guys think about it.
I can speak for my own mom, if you will indulge me. So about 6 years ago, I think, so she's 87 now. That's when my brother and sister and I thought it was time for the home. We didn't know what that meant. We looked at a lot of places. Unfortunately, Haley, we didn't look at yours because that's beautiful. Um, but we looked all around, and my mother was reluctant.
And you were, and Rebecca, just to put into context, Paula, your mom's lived alone for a long time. She's
Yes.
lived in SoCal for most of her life, and you were bringing her up to Oregon to be closer to you and your sister that lives in
Hmm.
Vancouver.
Hmm. Yeah. So there were a lot of levels.
A lot of levels of change. Yeah.
But I think the biggest one was that two things. One, a feeling of loss of independence, right? Um, she wasn't aware, though, that things were happening in her life that indicated that she was losing her ability to be independent. Um, Little things like not wanting to cook anymore, eating the same thing over and over because it was easy, to really, I think, becoming really reclusive.
Mm,
And with that, and I think COVID too, dovetailing into this, um, I think she aged faster. I think she
mm.
aged faster. And so when we were really pushing her to find a place, and she's in independent living instead of living in her own swanky little condo, it it was really hard because my sister and I, my brother was slightly involved, but mostly my sister and I, we saw her as a project. We saw her as an obstacle. We saw her as a, you don't know, well, we know better, right? And we kind of, I hate to say this, sort of dehumanized her. Now that I've gone through this process with her and she's living nearby and I see her interacting with people and going out and having her lunches and dinner and doing the events, I've started to see her as her full person again.
Okay.
And that has been great for me. It has also given me a lot more empathy with others I meet. We get impatient in this society. We want people to drive faster. We want people to, move up in the line, all that stuff. Going through this journey with my mom has been, I think, a real gift to me, too.
You bring up
Function
a
is
really
everything.
interesting point, right? Which is how we deal with people when we're in a crisis and when we have to do something, when it's an action item versus when we have the luxury of time and when we are in a better place. And that's such an important aspect of that. I imagine that you and your mom have not lived in the same city for a while before she moved here.
Years and years and years.
Right.
Yes, I think after I graduated from college, I came home with my bags thinking I was just going to camp out for a while. And she said, "No, you've got 6 weeks." So, yeah, it's been a long time. Uh, so, having her a couple of miles away at this point in our lives where my career is sort of changing and hers is long, she's long retired, we have more time for each other. We have more time for simple things that we both really enjoy. Country drives, looking at the crows in her neighborhood. I mean, just simple, simple stuff that's just super precious right now.
Haley, what do you think about as you see people come through in that you've already expressed multiple phases, some that are coming as couples, some that have come after a relatively traumatic end to a very long chapter in their lives, and they're coming at it with a sense of duress rather than a celebration. How do you think that how do you think that changes their ability to assimilate and really thrive in that environment?
I think first that, I think independence is sometimes misunderstood. And so I think the word is misunderstood by some people, and I think that hinders the change. So I think it can change how people approach the situation. So I don't think, I think independence is deeply valued but misunderstood. I think it doesn't always mean doing something alone. I think that means, true independence comes from asking for help and building the right support system. I think people want to stay in control, and I think sometimes being in that tight of a grip in control doesn't allow for any sort of flexibility. And I think some people understand that. Some people know that independence is about being flexible, and some people want to hold as tight as they can onto never shifting and never moving and never changing. And in result of that, I think it makes it harder and stressful for families. So I think there's a lot of situations of, I think some people are just in more of the understanding of that, but more often than not, I think that, you know, they see this as a weakness. They see as getting old as a weakness. They see themselves becoming a burden. And what's sad is there's this false trap around the word control, because it's if you resist any conversation that includes change or taking your options away or giving up your home, I feel like if they feel like their hand is being forced, they become more of a burden, because then there's more falls and there's more incidents and there's more isolation. And I think the people who understand that, and this is sometimes my job, is I always say it's more like therapy sometimes, because it's sort of my job not just to convince you to move into my building, but it's to help the children and those people understand that you are still incredibly independent in your choices. Like I had mentioned to you before, especially with Hello Every Day, I feel like it needs to be seen as self-care. I
Yeah,
mean, we're all making the decisions. We always make, people should, let me say, not everybody does this, but people should make the decision to have self-care. And we do things sometimes without thinking about them. Like I had mentioned, we take our vitamins and we fasten our seatbelt and we make our, physicals, and we do all of those things. But I just sometimes feel like it's a hard conversation to have with people who feel like that getting older now, they're losing all of their what is the word, autonomy. They're
yeah,
losing all of their, yeah, they're losing all of it. And so I guess I don't know. I'm seeing it from all angles. I think it's a daily process. Not everybody is the same, and I definitely try to let people know that, this is a self-care option, especially since we're independent living, right? There is no need, there is no excuse me, there is no urgency.
yeah,
Uh, it's just about putting things into place to give everybody a peace of mind. And it's really for them. And we're all here. I had a woman, that came downstairs. She moved in. She had lost her husband. She had lost her home. And she started having rolling panic attacks, just rolling panic attacks that were very, very sad. She would come down to my office in the morning and I'd let her just sit. I said, "You can sit. You can sit behind me while I work. You can just sit in the office and talk about it with me and feel whatever you need to feel." And sometimes she would cry, and sometimes she would go through the absolute, the shaking, the just the panic attacks of being somewhere and never doing it and having not knowing how to get involved. And it was really about me telling her, I teased her, I said, "Let it come. I'm afraid I'm going to throw up. I'm afraid I'm going to feel terrible. I'm afraid." And I said, "Let it," I said, "Just face it." I said, "So throw up all over the floor. Go ahead." told her, I said, do it. And she just looked at me and she goes, I'm not going to throw up on your floor. I said, let it happen. I said, because after you throw up and after the adrenaline wears off, you're still here. I
Mhm.
said, so you want to go upstairs? You can lay in bed all day. You don't have to be down here ready to socialize. I said, this is just your apartment. I said, I'm not your cruise director when I'm going to come knock on your door and make sure you're involved in activities. I said, it has to feel natural. And after a while, her visits became less and less, and there were waves from the elevator, and then she'd leave flowers on my desk. And she came in about a month ago. She'd been there about 6 months, and I'm watching her in the pool, and I'm watching her sitting with ladies at lunch. And she came over to me and she said, you saved my life. And I said, I did not. And she said, you saved my life. She goes, you were just a sounding board. She goes, I've never done this before. She goes, you really saved me. She goes, you let me just be me. I could shake and cry and scream and pound the desk in front of you, and it didn't matter. And I thought, that's my job, right? That's why I chose to be here. So, what do I take from that in my life and my family? I take things like that. I try to be who I am with my children, who I am with my own mother, in the position that I have. And I think that that speaks volumes for so many people.
I think I appreciate you sharing that. I think there's a tendency for us to think autonomy for me, but safety for thee, right? And what I think you did save her life, Haley. I think you're selling yourself short because made her feel seen and you helped her feel like she could get through it. And I think that's such an important aspect of the the complicated journey of going through grieving and going through the ability to not know whether you're going to be able to get through it, right? We need help. And I think it's so important to have people around that are willing to let you be yourself and go through the emotions. Um, one of the things that has struck me in the work that we do is we get to see the dichotomy of aging, and sometimes the complete contrast that often show up together, right? So you've both talked about how they want interaction, but they want it on their terms.
Right.
They're lonely, but they don't want any company. They want company that feels authentic to them. That they want independence, and but they also want to make sure that people are there when they need it. Or they don't want to feel like a burden, but they also want to be seen, right? Uh, Talk a little bit about as someone who is working with people or related to people like that. That's a really, it feels like a really hard needle to thread because at the same time, we all have day jobs and we all have our own families and we all have to deal with all of that. And then you have to be just very sensitive to people as they're dealing with a lot of the trauma associated with that. Uh, Talk a little bit about stuff that's worked for you to help people through that.
Being seen without being in the spotlight, that's
Yeah,
almost impossible.
yeah, yeah,
Loneliness versus connection on one's own terms. It's like, okay, well, you want to be social, but then you don't want me to plan anything and you don't want
yeah,
to come to activities, but you also want to eat, but don't make
right,
me sit in the dining room. I just want to come down on my own free will. So it's a lot. People want to be acknowledged and valued without being put on display and treated as fragile.
right.
It's a quiet kind of dignity, right? And so we just sort of have to allow them to be recognized and not patronized.
Mhm.
And it is a roller coaster throughout the day, right? There is a lot of push and pull, and it's not specific to any sort of person. I mean, I feel that way just myself. Like there's times where
Yeah,
it's like I want you to pay attention to me, but also like not overly pay attention to me. And then like I want my kids to like want my attention, but then I also like just want to know that they're okay and I can still carry on with my life. So
right.
don't think it's senior specific, but especially in this, so many older adults, they just stay quiet about their struggles because they don't want to be a burden. And that silence, like I said, leads to emergencies. And so I think it's up to us to sort of be able to read between the lines. My mother hates nothing more than being, mothered.
Yeah.
It's instinct, when I see her with a cane to put my arm out and she's like, I'm all
Right.
right. Just,
Right.
don't make a big deal out of it,
Absolutely.
Right. Well, just like I did when I didn't want, my son didn't want me to come over and lick my finger and go over to his face because I'm used to doing it. I mean, he doesn't want that either. So it's
Tough.
it's
You're the
tough.
mother.
Exactly. It's tough.
Who
And then
cares
I
if
feel
he's
like,
grown?
well, what role do you want me to play? It's almost like I just want you to spell it out. Just like, why
Yeah.
don't you write down what you want me to be for you? And then I will try to be that way without instinct. So I don't know. It's not about constant attention. I think it's about meaningful and chosen interactions and understanding, how that flows with their personality and not taking any of it personally. Just you absolutely can't because in one moment that senior could be very much enjoying my attention and then like a cat they're just like okay I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
done. I'm done. Like I don't want to talk anymore. I'm going to go to my room and that's how it is. So I think it's hard. It's being seen without being in the spotlight. It's being able to read that and that's at least how I
It,
see it.
oh, you hit it on the head. I think that's exactly it. I do like the cat analogy. I think that's a good one.
We're
And I also
done.
really
We're done
like
now.
I also really like the not taking it personally, right? Because that it's so easy to do that because it's you're immediate, right? You're right there, and so it's easy to take it personally.
Mhm.
Rebecca, how do you think about this?
There's so much here.
Yeah.
And Haley, you touched on a lot. I really loved, I wrote down two things you said, recognized, not patronized.
Right.
That is so important. And the quiet dignity too. I think that's a, that's how we have to lead here because our elders, they have dignity and they deserve dignity. Um, so I try to lead with that. What you were saying really comes down to me to acceptance. And it takes a long time. It took me a little bit less time to get to a point of acceptance to where my mom is in her life. Um, but now I think my mom's there too. And part of it is we communicate on a different level now. When before she was in independent living, I peppered her all the time about everything. Are you eating? Are you washing your clothes? Blah, blah. Now I don't have to do that. And at the risk of being too salesy right now, I also am using the Hello Everyday app. And that helps me so much because our conversations now are about what'd you do today versus did you go to lunch? Did you sleep last night? Um, what my mom wants most right now is someone to listen to her, someone to be there, um, someone to not worry about her every minute of the day. She's still doing things. She's still fixing up her patio and planting plants. She wants to talk to me about the bird nest, and so I think that for me, the most powerful thing out of this whole process is once I started to accept my mom's aging, I started to accept my own. And that has been really cool. Um,
That's beautiful.
yeah, it's true. It doesn't mean that I don't struggle with, oh gosh, another 5 pounds, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm alive and I'm enjoying my life. And this is all I've got right now. This is all I know, and it's all my mom's got and all she knows right now too. So, um, yeah, the acceptance part has been great.
You're such a lovely human, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're very
You
kind.
are. So you can tell just how sweet and how much you are trying with everything to make room to learn from this. And I mean, isn't that what we're always doing, right? We're always trying, we're always learning, we're always discovering something. I think anybody who claims to know everything is just one of the most I find that to be a very obnoxious trait. So for me, I find that, to feel like we're constantly students, whether it's of the world or of our parents or of, even, who we work with. And I'm a student of my children, trust me. Like they teach me more than I've ever, had. And especially working in this elderly population, I'm learning every day. And sometimes they're not always great lessons, but like you had mentioned, Kabir, I feel like it is just, I am so lucky to be in an industry that is teaching me and preparing me for when this happens to me in my own life. And by this, I don't mean like when I become old, it's teaching me on how to accept moving towards, the chapters that are unfolding in front of me. And I'll be honest, everyone says they would go backwards, and I love who I am at this age. I don't think I've ever known how to put boundaries up better and how to, speak, thinking first before I speak, all the things that I didn't feel like I did when I was younger. And I love what you said, Rebecca. Your mom is very fortunate to have you, and I'm sure
Oh,
vice
so
versa.
kind. Well, I'll tell you, Haylee, I know you mentioned your age in a meeting with us, so I know I'm a lot older than you are. It gets
Not by
better.
much, not by much, I'm
It
sure.
gets it just each year is more wonderful. So
I'm loving it. I'm
yeah,
loving every minute of
yeah.
it. Yeah, very lucky, like you said, to feel like I can be who I am. And I'm very lucky to have the role that I have in senior living and to know the people that I know and to be connected to individuals that I trust. It's a hell of an industry. I mean, it really is. It is such a great group of people that I was telling somebody about this today. A gentleman came from an in-home care service, and he and I talked about how the heart in senior living and the senior industry is just undeniable. It's so special. There's so many people with a genuine purpose out there, and it just shows. I'm very lucky to be a part of this community of people, and especially to know the both of you. I think you do great things for people, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Right back at you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
you guys have both touched on the importance of gratitude. Um, how has that, how does that, how do you see that with some of the older adults that you work with? And how do you deal with when you don't have that gratitude, right? So gratitude in my mind is so liberating because it allows me to, like, that is what helps me sleep at night. So if I'm not able to sleep, and it's a rare occurrence, I start listing all the things that I'm grateful for, and by the time I get to my fourth or fifth thing, I'm starting to drift off to sleep. And it can be very simple things. It can be I'm so grateful for the bed I'm in and how comfortable I am. It's just those things. It's a dopamine release, right? But I also recognize that not everybody follows that path, and when you don't, it becomes it can be a real challenge to have acceptance because I think gratitude is the conduit for acceptance, and you can't get there without having that gratitude. How do you guys see that in the worlds that you work in?
You go first, Haley.
I'm waiting for
I'm
you
going
to
to
go
copy whatever
first.
you say.
Let me see. I'll be very transparent. I am not very good at remembering what I should be grateful for. There's no lie here. I think that I'm very involved in making sure that everybody around me feels safe. My children, my husband, my mother, whoever it is, right? Even my boss. I'm always, can I get you something? Do you need something? Do you want me to bring you something? I'm always just the Italian hostess all over the place with everybody, right? I am constantly trying to provide an environment where the people I love wake up every day feeling grateful. Okay. Do I do it for me? Do I go to bed and do I remember this beautiful house, this beautiful man next to me, these beautiful, healthy children, this wonderful job, this beautiful earth? I'm trying. I more than likely go to bed going, oh my God, I got to get the boys ready for school. Okay. Oh my God, did I get this? Did I make the coffee downstairs? Did I get right? And then I'm thinking, I got to call this one. She mentioned she wanted this, and I got to think of this one. So I'm trying very hard to wake up and tell my husband this little sentence that's stupid. But I went to an Exec Connect meeting where it was brought on by the Women to Women Network. And this woman, Doris, who is a published author, told me to say this every day. She said, wake up and look at your partner and say, have I told you how much I love my life? And I'm trying very hard. And she goes, it's so silly. I say it every day. And my husband now rolls his eyes at me. She goes, but trust me. She goes, it changes everything. And I've been trying to remember. I don't do it every day, but I'm trying to remember to say it to him. And not just selfishly so I can be reminded, but that he feels good knowing that I'm happy.
Mhm.
And that is lacking so much, I think, in this human connection, is saying something on purpose, not to make myself feel good, but that he knows I'm happy, that my kids know I'm happy. And I think that that intertwines into making the people that choose to live at Morningstar or where they're living is that they can look at their kids. My sole job is to make them feel like they can look at me or their kids and go, I'm really happy. I'm really happy. This choice made me really happy. And so I'm trying to learn from that. I'm trying to get better about remembering what I'm grateful for and not just for me. I don't want something to happen to me someday and the people around me to wonder if I was ever happy. So,
It's so interesting to me, Haley, how you're using a daily reminder and you're using that as a way of having reassurance. It's a lot like what we do at Hello Every Day. So shameless plug, sorry. But
no, bring it.
It's true though.
Yeah.
Rebecca,
I remember once driving down the freeway when I got a brand new job. I was living in Southern California and I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. And I was a single parent. And I thought, okay, this is great.
arrived.
Top
And
tier.
yes. And and I called my new boss and I said, I am just really grateful for this opportunity. And he said, oh, well, you worked hard. You earned this. But what was weird about that was that was actually the first time I ever felt grateful in my life. And I think I was 41 years old. And a bad person. You thought maybe I was nice, Haley, you're way wrong. But over time, I started a lot of practices, some meditation and just mindfulness, which forces, in a way, you to slow down and to remember what's important. And so for me, my gratitude has come slowly and over time. And it has accelerated as I've gotten older because I just, I don't know why the awe of the world, it's like you start out as a little kid and the awe of the world is incredible. And then it sort of dips. And now I'm at the awe of the world again. And part of the awe of the world is being around older people who I folk dance, for example. And every
I
Wednesday night I
love
get together with these wonderful men and women who have been doing international folk dancing for 50 years, some of them. There's a woman in the class who's 93. And so I am now socializing with people who are older. Most of them are 15 years older than I am. I am so grateful for this group. Talk about feeling like something has saved your life. I feel like I found my people and I found a way to exercise. And I found some models of people who, well, I don't know them all super well, but I feel like we share similar values and they're living their lives and they're continuing to live their lives, even if it's harder to drive at night, even if they've got the sciatica or whatever. They come here and we're in community. So I should probably say something nice to my husband every day. It's a good one, but I am grateful for him too. Um, and it's important because I, as a nonprofit person, I did fundraising for my entire career. I've always been more business focused and grateful to those people who helped contribute to my cause, whatever
Right,
it would be,
right.
but not so much the people in my very house. And so that's a good thing to remind myself, Haley, is to be mindful. Yeah, this is good.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're bringing up a really important point, which is gratitude is not innate. It's a practiced. It's practiced. You have to actually do it, and you're doing it for yourself, more so than doing it for others.
Mhm.
And it's what gives us that joy. I think Haley, in a lot of ways, your your Italian upbringing of hospitality is a lot of that as well. There's a lot of similarities there where you're doing for others, and that creates the gratitude in you. Um, and so I can see a lot of parallels in everything that you're saying. But I think you're exactly right too, Rebecca. It takes you you there's a little bit of wisdom associated with that, and it often comes with age. It's not something that necessarily teenagers or when you're in your 20s that
No.
you know to do, right? The
Mhm.
value of. And that's why it's so interesting to see how much we know now and how much our parents were right after all.
It's so true.
Darn it.
And we're grateful for it.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
so grateful that you were so right all these years. Yes. No,
Exactly.
it's true. It really is true. I don't think I could have understood younger. I think that is such a beautiful thing that happens with age, and maybe that's just cliche. And it's funny you mentioned your mom and the birds and the crows. My mom put up a squirrel house in the backyard, and
Mhm.
she's cutting up corn and apple slices for them every morning, and she's doing all these things. And I thought, I'm trying every day to wake up and look outside at the pastures and the view that we have and this house that we work so hard for. And I'm just like, I just don't think I would have ever understood what that meant. And, is it becoming easier as I'm faced every day with, watching people experience what are some of the last years of their lives? Yes. Yes, I think it is. It is steering me in the direction. Um, it gives me more time to reflect more than I think, working at the mall or, working in a restaurant does. I think working with seniors is a very humbling and it can be a very terrifying and a very rewarding, just like motherhood. It's just it's a wonderful opportunity to see rawness in life because, as you know, at this age, there's not a lot of filter, and there's a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of wisdom, and I think it's a very lucky place to be in. So I should definitely be more grateful.
I know we can talk for all night, but I know I'm looking at the time and I think we should probably end it here. But I would love to continue this conversation at a later date and see where we have gotten in our journey of gratitude and acquiring wisdom. So
I love that.
with that, I'm gonna stop here. Thank you so much, Haley and Rebecca, for taking time out of your busy evenings,
Thank you.
coming and
Thank
chatting
you.
with us. Um,
Thank you.